The Grit and Green Podcast by Ducklander Falkland.
Start from the start.
Okay.
Okay. What's up, everyone? This is Grit and Green, episode number 3. I am Bobby Hayes, owner of Ducklander Calls.
And I'm Kyle Bauer, just the lost buddy that hangs out in the shop. And I get to go hunt a couple times.
So, tonight we're going to talk about calling ducks. So we're going to go over duck calls, when to call, what sounds to make, everything encompassing calling a duck.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch last week's episode, last episode, because these are every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We talked basically about some hunting culture.
Yeah. Culture, the hobbyists, the avid, the everyday versus the handful of times a year, why they're all important.
Yeah,
Why
and
it's
then I think we talked a little bit about how you get hooked on duck hunting.
Yeah. There's always that one thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then maybe how we remembered duck season, which
Yeah.
we remembered basically off of finished ducks.
Yeah. Certain ducks that got shot at certain parts of the year.
So, I'm going to talk about duck calling tonight.
Yeah.
I figure we should probably start with the duck call itself.
Yeah.
So this is a preference thing. I'm going to go over my lanyard, which is hanging on the wall right there. What I use, why I use it. So, for the most part, I run one duck call at a time. I do not have more than one on my lanyard at a time. So whatever call I start a duck with is the call I finish a duck with.
Yeah.
So I run one of my little LT hand cuts. It has either a number 1 or a number 3 or 4 reed, depending on how much air I got at the time. I switch those out as I get more air throughout the season. Reed's always engraving down for a little more wine. But I carry a fuse in the bag, which is a little quieter call. Not much, but a little bit. I tune it a little whinier with a bullet reed. And then I keep one of the mammoth cuts when I want to have more of a cut down sound to it.
Yep.
Yeah, and those are my staples, but I run that little LT hand cut 98% of the time.
It's kind of a duel. I mean,
Yeah, that's
loud calls can get quiet, but quiet calls can't get loud. So
right. And then
hone your craft and be able to make the same sounding notes just quiet.
what do you have on yours, Kyle?
Same thing. I have the LT hand cut, and I think I have a number 1 dog ear, like the heavy dog.
Right.
I want number 1, number 2 in it. And then I also have a fuse in the bag. I have the original mammoth.
Yep.
That was still the cut down size.
Yeah.
So it's a big old tube. And then I usually have a whistle hanging
Yep.
on my lanyard too.
So I have a whistle most of the time too. One of us is pretty much always making a sound with a whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Kyle and I have called together for a long time.
Yes.
So there's a
very
big
long time.
advantage to calling with somebody that you've worked a lot of ducks with. I know where ducks are at when Kyle is calling without having to look at the duck or look at Kyle. I can tell from the sound whether they're far away, whether they're close, whether I should grab my gun. Yeah, just from the sound of what he's doing.
Absolutely. And I'm the same way with you.
So there is some advantages. We don't step on each other very often.
I would say the only times we do is when we're trying to get attention.
Yeah,
You know, if there's a, you know, like over there in Missouri, a handful of times when there'd be a big bunch flying over, just trying to get one of them to do something.
yeah, or you're going to have a little bit of stepping on each other because you might see something going on that somebody doesn't right.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but we don't do that very often. You kind of want to take the ego out of the calling when you're calling with somebody.
Oh, it's a must.
Like, I don't care I don't care what duck call they're responding to. I just want to respond to somebody's duck call.
Yeah. Do something.
Yeah, so the reason this is important is if you're not a very good caller, but you hunt with somebody, and if you two each have 1 or 2 good sounds you make, if you can call together, you're a pretty effective caller together.
Yes. An effective team.
Yeah, one of these days, I'm going to get Kyle and we're going to go behind the shop in the woods, and Kyle will do just 2 notes on the call, so a hen and a feed, and I will do 2 notes on a call, just a hen and a feed, and then we'll put them together and make a sound file. And it's ridiculous how much you can sound like a lot of ducks with 2 guys, because you're always going to sound different from each other.
A couple guys and a handful of notes.
Yeah.
How much that sounds like an actual pot of ducks.
Yes. And the truth is, you don't need a phenomenal amount of sounds to call a duck. You really just need to be able to quack. And then a lot of guys would argue, but I think a feed is very effective. So you really just need to be able to quack and feed.
Yep.
So, like I said, if there's two of you and you both can quack and one of you can feed, you can sound like a lot of ducks.
Yes.
Even if one of you can't feed very well and the other one can feed semi-well, you can still sound like a lot of ducks and sound very realistic.
It's just the commotion.
Yeah.
What it boils down to.
What I'd like to do as well is I'd like to get somebody that doesn't call very well and make a sound file with me or you with them where we are making a minimum amount of notes and letting them make their not as good notes and then make a sound file of that together, because I think people would be amazed
at how accurate that actually is.
Yeah, at how lifelike that
Yes.
actually sounds. So, even if the guy can just do a single hen,
Yeah.
if you mix that together, it actually sounds, it can sound pretty amazing if the timing is right and you're
Absolutely.
not stepping on each other. So,
Well, I mean, anybody that's hunted the Missouri stuff, the Nottoway, the Grand Pass, the Bob Browns, any of those draw-in areas, they've gotten into the draw house at 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, whatever it is when they draw in, and they've heard the ducks.
yeah.
How easy it is to mimic that.
If you pay attention and you practice a little bit,
Yep.
yeah, like I said, you don't need to have a phenomenal amount of range or sounds.
No.
The more of that you have, really
Hold on. Go ahead.
Cal's been a little off.
I'm fighting it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's all right. So, really, what calling does, the better you get at it, you can take a mediocre day and turn it into an amazing day with good calling. Great calling will turn it into an amazing day. Good calling will help you shoot your ducks. And you can take a really slow, poor day and turn it into a salvageable day if you're really good on a call. So that's like an amazing day most of the time doesn't take a lot of calling.
No.
Yeah, so calling saves hunts more than it makes hunts amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most of the time if the day is amazing, what you really need to do is learn how to just shut up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and get out of the way. So you're trying to just make it seem like you're not there. So
I may need to get cuff drops. I thought I'd be all right, but
yeah, you're right. So I would say also one of the greatest things about duck hunting is calling ducks. Mm-hmm. Like if I couldn't call ducks, I don't know if I would hunt ducks.
well, it's the response. It's the conversation you're having.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like if all we had were sea ducks and you didn't call them, I don't know if I'd hunt them. Maybe. I don't know if I'd hunt them as much.
Oh, definitely not.
I like calling ducks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot.
It's like me with turkeys. That's what I enjoy about turkey hunting.
Right.
Is the animal responding to the call you're making.
If I was somebody told me you can either shoot ducks for the rest of your life or call ducks for the rest of your life, I would probably choose call ducks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would probably rather go out and call ducks and not shoot them than I would just go out and shoot them and never call a duck again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would pick the call. Yeah,
Oh, I agree.
like I will blow at geese that are flying over the shop
Yeah.
just to see if I can make them turn. Yeah, I know they're not coming into the yard, but I just want to see if I can spin them around.
One of these days they're going to do it.
Yeah, one of these days. So that is one of the greatest things. So if you're not calling while you're hunting, you're missing out on a lot of the experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you don't call, you should learn how to call. It'll change your view of what you're doing out there.
I agree. You know, the handful of times we don't hunt together throughout the year, that's what I do enjoy is when I'm hunting with buddies, I tend to be the one that is blowing a call and just
Right.
letting them have at it, and it's fun to watch them work and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
So, with all that being said, we're going to do just kind of a quick rundown of how to call a duck.
Yeah.
So, I don't like the standard duck calling labels of greeting call, hail call, feed call. It's all very confusing,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So, we're going to just do, break down what we would do when we see ducks, and maybe that would help somebody kind of get an idea of what's going on if they're new to this.
Yeah.
So Kyle and I call differently but the same.
Yes.
Most of the time, if I see a bunch of ducks and I want to get their attention, I will do 2, 3 real choppy hens. They're loud, they're aggressive. I just want attention, so I don't necessarily try to be the most realistic I can be at that moment in time. And then if that's not working, I may go to 5 to 7 notes, and then if that's not working, I may go to 5 to 7 notes that have whine on the end of them. And then if that's not working, I may blow a really hard, aggressive refuge feed at them with a bunch of hens in it.
Pause. I coughed up.
Kyle got him a cough drop. We'll get back at this. So, like I said, I will do a big feed at them, throw a bunch of hens in it. I'm pretty fast on a feed. I can throw a lot of hens inside of a feed. Mm-hmm. So what I was getting at though is, whatever you do when you first see ducks is a hail call. It doesn't need to be 10 notes long, or there's no set. It's just whatever you do when you first see them to get their attention. Now, Kyle does his a little different when he first sees ducks.
It's that snotty, kind of, not necessarily super aggressive, but it's just a good 5 to 7 quacks.
Yes. So
just an attention grabber.
Like I would say, and I don't care. That's what we were talking about before. I don't care which one of us gets their attention.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, a lot of times we hunt a lot of days where Kyle gets their attention. Like they may be picking up on his sound more than mine, but they might like my sounds to finish better than what Kyle is doing.
Yes.
So, like I said, neither one of us care. And then, like, my general rule of thumb is, like, if I'm making notes and they're not responding, and then Kyle makes some notes and they respond to Kyle, I'm not going to do anything now until Kyle loses them.
Yes.
Yeah, because, like, if they're liking what he's doing, I don't need to step in on it.
No.
Yeah, they just need to continue doing the good thing they're doing.
Doing too much can hurt more than can help.
Yeah. So a big trick to this is knowing when not to call.
Yes.
Yeah. So if Kyle gets their attention and then they're spinning the hole, I'm gonna let him at them ducks until they decide they don't like us anymore.
Yeah.
And then I will try to make a sound that gets them back to liking us. And then a lot of times if I make a note and they liked it, Kyle will stop.
Yep.
Yeah. And he might not stop altogether. He may go to the whistle, or he may throw some background noise in. But
yeah, it's the premier or they will always change what they want to hear on the loud. I say loud, but not the loudest. Just the main thing they want to hear. A little bit of chatter doesn't hurt anything at all.
No.
Like just throwing a little bit of chatter here and there is, hell, it's probably more of a good thing than it is a bad thing.
yes, when you start talking about the volume, I relate this a lot to just having a conversation with a person. So the best way I can get a good image in your head of the correct amount of volume. Let's say you're at a waterfowl event and it's fairly noisy, but it's not super noisy. It's fairly noisy. People are talking, laughing, all that good stuff. It goes out in the parking lot. And you see your buddy and he's 100 feet away, maybe 200 feet away, and you want his attention. You typically will say his name at a volume you think he can hear. You don't say it at the top of your lungs. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't hear it the first time, you say it a little louder the second time, and so forth until you get his attention. So I look at a duck the same way when I first see them. I want to make it just loud enough I think they can hear it, and if I make a noise and they don't respond, I will go a little louder than that.
Yeah.
So you don't want to start off at your maximum volume, because if there's just some guy screaming at you in a parking lot, it's weird. It's just out of place.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then of course you're going to get quieter as they come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be starting a duck. Now, working a duck is completely different than starting a duck. It doesn't matter what you sound like to start the duck. You just need the duck to get their attention focused on the decoy spread. So it doesn't matter what you do that with. Because they're so far away, I don't think they can tell whether it's realistic or not realistic. You just need their attention.
Correct.
So Kyle and I pretty much run off the rule of calling on the corners. Now, the corners are important because it allows you to call the duck and you can see the duck. You can't call ducks if you can't see ducks. You have to see how they're reacting to the sound you're making.
So on those corners, what do you mean? Well, I know what you mean, but
Right.
the people have asked us on calling clinics.
Right.
That's
Okay.
a good broad.
So the best way I can explain corners is there's 4 of them in every decoy spread. So if I'm where we're hunting, so I'm facing Kyle and I'm where we're hunting, so Kyle would be in the decoy spread right now. That means we're hunting this way. Oh, you motherfucker. Nigger.
It's not liking us today.
God damn.
We may need to give this a break, and we'll just come back and knock it out.
No, it's still recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's it showing on your end then?
Nothing, it just says it disconnects. Yeah, it did it last time too. I'm gonna have to find a different way to do that. I'm gonna have to find somebody to stand behind that thing and operate it. Okay, so this is the decoy spread. And so Kyle is in the decoys, I'm in the blind. So for this, the wind is at my back. So they're gonna come straight on to me. So there's 4 corners in a decoy spread. Every decoy spread has 4 corners. So you have front right, front left, then you have the rear left and the rear right. So 2 spots you can almost always call on is the 2 corners. So that is, now that's as if you're hid well.
The 2 rear corners.
The 2 rear corners, yes.
Okay.
So that's if you're hid well. So that's, yeah, because they shouldn't be able to see you from behind. So preferably the ducks are going over you. They're not too far behind you. But, so if their wind is this way, so they're either going to come into the spread from the front right or they're going to come into the spread from the front left. So if they're going to come in from the spread from the front right today, then the rear right corner is a very important corner. This is the corner we want to turn the duck on most of the time. So they're going to be spinning, and we need noise when they're in the rear right corner. And then we have to let the duck go out far enough. We can't push on the duck. The spots in between the corners, that is where they will pick you out. So that's the no calling area most of the time. So we got to let the duck get far enough out that it can get lined up with the wind, and then we make noise again on this corner. So that is the corners.
Yeah. It's when they're getting to the point where they are quartered away from you.
That is
When they're making their circle.
Yeah.
That's the corner.
Yes, after they've turned and they're now looking at us, they're past the corner.
Correct.
Yeah. Now that's not to say you can't make any noise right there, but it's tricky. Yeah.
Can't be loud, can't be aggressive.
And you have to be hidden.
Yes.
So you pretty much have to be looking through some kind of cover.
While you're hidden.
Yeah. You got to be hidden right there because they're looking at you. And then over the top of you is also an always you do not call when they're over the top of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you only call in the corners, you will kill ducks. Like that is
And it doesn't matter how good or bad it is. That's when you make noise.
Yeah, that's just when you can make noise. So timing is more important than how realistic you sound.
Correct. Very big one.
If you don't sound good on a call, but you have impeccable timing and on the corners and when to call, you will kill ducks. If you sound amazing on a call, but they can see you while you're calling, you will suck at killing ducks.
Yes.
That's just the way this game works.
It's like anything in life. Timing is everything.
Very important. Now, I would say the most important note that a guy can learn is quacking.
Yes.
I finish a lot of ducks with single hen quacks. That's it. Not a run of quacks, not a series of quacks, just whack. Count 1 or 2, whack.
The one thing I'll throw in there, I know you're not big on the hails, the greetings, and all that stuff, but if you're doing the single quack, do not make it a long one.
No.
Because that is this is danger, we're getting out of here.
Yeah, you don't want mac, 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 mac. Yeah, that's not, there's got to be some space
Quack,
in it.
1, 2, quack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because, a warning quack is mac, 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 mac. You've all heard that when you walked up and flushed ducks. That's
Yes.
not
You don't want to do that.
No.
I did it once. It's not good.
You can pretty much always feed if the feed isn't overly loud. Now, a feed and chatter are different, and a feed and clucks are different.
Correct.
You can cluck inside of a feed, you can cluck, but just chatter, that's that ticka-ticka sound. So if you just that sound, you'll hear them do that in the air, and they're typically flying around in a circle over the spread, and they're not going to land when they're just up doing their little spacing chatter. So a feed, though, you have to keep in mind, a feed is a fairly aggressive sound. When ducks feed, it's an exciting part of the day.
Yes.
And quite frankly, if you're in a big bald pond and there is no food in it, if the day just sucks, you can try to see if they respond to it. But I try not to feed where there's no feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's out of place. So if you're just hunting some bald water and they're not feeding in it, so it's a loaf, clucks, quacks, little runs of hens.
That little chatter sound doesn't hurt either, in my opinion. Because
Well,
they're making that, but it's not the feed. It's not
right.
It's a
Yes,
it's just the
I consider that more of spacing.
Yeah.
Like they just sit by each other and make that little guttural sound.
okay.
Yeah, it's not a feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I try not to feed where it's out of place.
Yeah.
Where it is in place, like if you're in a smartweed patch, is very, very, very effective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. So we hunt a lot of smartweed, some grain, millet, stuff like that, a little bit of corn. I would say half of the ducks we shoot probably get finished with a feed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
The feed chatter, just guttural sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
But with the feed too. Yeah.
yeah. So this is something. Check it real quick, Kyle. I think it's good. So this is something you can really contemplate here. There will be certain days when a duck wants to be called on the corner, and you're going to make a sound at it. You're going to just do 3 or 4 little hens at it, and it's going to lock up and it's going to come in. That's the finish that day. But there's going to be other days where that duck wants called all the way to when it gets shot.
Yep.
I would say there's more of those days than there are the days when you're just going to make a little bit at them and then they're going to come in.
That's more scenario in my opinion. But yeah.
So, Kyle and I tend not to hunt with a lot of guys. So most of the time it's me and Kyle and the other Kyle.
Yep.
So that's about what we got going on, right? Now, a lot of times, one of us will be making sound on the call while the other guy is shooting because the duck wants called in all the way. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't always help you to get the duck lined up and then stop all the sound. If it's coming to the sound and hunting the sound out that day, we just alternate on who's going to pull the trigger that day.
It becomes a gentleman's hunt.
Yeah, that changes on bunches of ducks.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
your singles and pairs, if they want to hear it.
Yeah, so a lot of times those days are actually the best days of shooting because there will be a duck call going off while the gun is going off. Mm-hmm. That means you're shooting at the duck when it's getting lower and not when it's getting higher. So those are some of my favorite days when calling.
Absolutely.
And then if you want to talk about the amount of calling, it's pretty easy to go off the rule of the least amount of calling is the correct amount of calling, in my opinion. It's pretty easy to overcall. It's pretty hard to undercall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's just something you have to sort out for the day. So, I typically, you always have those daylight ducks.
Yeah, there's always that first 15 minutes.
And they're going to be the easiest ducks of the day, but you can pretty much tell right off the bat, do they like the sound of the duck call or do they not? So, if they don't like the sound of the duck call in that first 15 minutes, they're not going to like it any better once they can see.
No.
Now, different times of the day can change that. They may not like sound at 7:30 because they're going out to do something else. Mm-hmm. By 9, it's sunny, you're in a smartweed patch, wind's out of the north, they may start eating the sound up. That's all stuff you got to judge as the hunt goes, because they can just turn on.
It'll either work or it won't.
Yeah. But I would...
And a lot of times, depending on your flight lines, too, I mean, you can go down such a wormhole with that stuff.
Yes, you can.
You know, if you are hunting something and they're not responding in the morning and there's just gobs of ducks flying over, there's probably a different feed going on somewhere, whether it's a dry feed or it's a club near you or something. That's their flight line. So you give it till that 9 o'clock, and that, in my opinion, that 9 to noon, 9 to 2, it's the slower hunt, but it's the funner hunt.
Well, I think sometimes
More fun
when they're on that feed line, you're almost better to leave them alone.
Agreed.
Instead of trying to drag one or two out of it at a time and let them go do whatever they're going to go do, and then get them when they want the water. Because you can pretty much tell if you're on water and they want water, like it just turns on.
Everything looks at you.
Yeah, it just turns on.
Yeah.
Like it'll go from nothing to just everything that flies by is looking at us.
Yeah.
You may not be finishing them all.
No.
But they're all looking at you. They're spinning. They're doing good things.
They'll give you one loop, or you'll see them do the flutter when you call at them, you know, the different changes and stuff like that. But it's such it's so scenario based that when we go out west of your shop or even here by the shop, if they're, especially in the afternoon, evening hunts, the handfuls that we do, I mean, they may be going to a feed, but you just know. I mean, the first handful of birds that fly by, you give them something and they don't do anything and they have their heart set.
Yeah. So geese are even worse about that.
Yes, wait it out.
Most of the time, if you're hunting a goose loaf and they're going out to feed in the morning, you're best just leave them alone and let them want the water.
Can't force it.
No. So the other thing I would say, so a lot of this depends on how you hunt. Now, Kyle and I, like I said, we pretty much hunt with just two of us, maybe a third guy, the other Kyle. And that's about as big as a group gets, unless people in town or something's going on.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is you can actually push on ducks too hard and mess up the bigger bunches of ducks. So I don't want, let's say there's 25 ducks in a flock. I don't want to get the two ducks that are absolutely eating the sound up down on the water too fast, because so if I'm making a lot of sound at them, they're absolutely eating it up and they're getting very aggressive. I don't necessarily want them to get that far out in front of the flock, because once they separate, you kind of have made two flocks of ducks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to back off and you have to let the flock catch up with the pair or the single or whatever is really liking what you're doing, if you're going to finish the whole flock out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got to watch that nothing gets too separated, because your chances of everything coming in and finishing are greater if they stay together most of the time. Once the hen drops out, most of the time the other two hens in the bunch are going to drop out, and that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So for Kyle and I, that means we're not shooting anything.
Yep.
Yeah. Most of the brown ones are going to come in and leave.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
They're going to take a look.
Yeah. But.
When it comes to the groups, I mean, when it's time and they're doing it, the one thing I'm looking at is the attention grabber. So I give them that 5 to 7 of the nasally, nasty, raspy, naughty little hen. And is one of those birds that's in that bunch, is it a flutter? Is it the little flip? Do they change their wing beats?
Right.
And once that wing beat changes, that's when you know.
So the other thing, and a lot of guys don't relate this to calling, but
and it's so subtle though.
Very subtle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you have to know how to look for it. It's very, very subtle. Mm-hmm. You can actually tell a fair amount. You can actually tell a fair amount of what a duck's going to want to hear by what goes on in the morning, and I mean before you can see. So if you go in, let's say you're going in to hunt a public place. Now pressure changes this obviously, and everything is so overpressured right now. But let's take it down to moderate pressure. Let's say you go into a millet pool that's public. It's got some willows in it. It's got a decent hide. And when you're going out, the ducks are just very, very noisy. well, more than likely, they're going to want sound that day.
Yes.
If you go out and you're flushing ducks and you don't hear the ducks, you're probably not going to want to hear a lot of sound that day.
Yeah.
If the refuge is dead quiet, probably a good indicator that you need to be very sparing on a call.
I know this is kind of down the wormhole a little bit, but I've noticed incoming weather, snow, sleet, something like that, they'll get vocal.
Yep.
And they'll stay vocal even after sunrise.
Yeah.
And then once that front line hits, that's when they either get louder or they shut off. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, that's something to pay attention. That's a combo for another day. But
So a lot of calling is just paying attention to what's going on.
yes,
That's really most of it. Now, one of these days, what I want to do, I want to take Kyle and myself and go back here and behind the shop in the woods because that's where I make sound files at. It sounds good. Get the microphone away from the calls so you can actually hear them. But I want Kyle to just pick out a hen to do, so that can be 2 quacks, 6 quacks, whatever that hen is, no tone changes, and a little bit of chatter. And then I will pick out a different hen to do and a little bit of chatter and make a sound file of just that, because it's pretty crazy if you just mix 4 sounds together that are different, how many ducks that sounds like and how real that sounds.
yes,
So that would be kind of some inspiration. So if you have a buddy you hunt with and say that guy quacks really good and you do not, but you have a better feed than he does, if you mix those two together and you get your timing right and you're not stepping on each other, it's pretty amazing how effective that can be if it's done right.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and the other thing I'd like to get somebody that can't call or just terrible at calling, but they call a little bit, and then do the same thing with them, because I think you would be shocked at how realistic it sounds with the croaky hen in the mix.
yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, I've done it before, so I know what it sounds like, but it's actually it can be pretty amazing sounding. Yeah, it'll really surprise you.
You know, a handful of listeners, I'm sure, haven't been to the areas when, you know, they're within earshot of where the birds are at. And it's something to be remarkable because you can actually tell, you know. You can kind of pick out where the hens are at, but how different they all actually sound.
Oh, they sound so different. You know, like
So-
say, even though like Kyle and I run the same call, Kyle's sound is going to sound different than I'm going to sound. Nobody's going to sound like you on a duck call. You can copy a cadence, and you can copy tone to a certain extent, but everybody's built different, so everybody's going to make that call sound different.
Well, and the interesting thing too, like, I mean, with the calling contest coming up, come out to that and listen to how different.
Oh, yeah.
It's all like the Main Street one. It's all going to be the same thing, but they're all going to sound just a little bit different.
Especially on the meat.
Yes.
Yes.
It's interesting to hear that difference. And it really puts a staple to the fact of how different everything actually is when it comes to calling.
Yeah, it is very much.
I mean, some of those guys can take the same 3 calls and they all sound the exact same. All those guys really can. But each one's going to sound different from the next person.
And something to put in your mind, a single quack, you can hunt with a single quack, 100%, and you can be very effective with a single quack. The most different people will sound ever is in their feeds. So you can copy somebody's feed 100%, but your mouth and throat and tongue will have a natural flow to it that nobody else's will have. Like I said, you can physically copy it and get real close.
Yeah.
But you will have, everybody that learns how to run a call will have a distinct feed and hens inside of that when they learn it.
Correct.
So that, if you take the time to learn how to do it, it will exponentially change your hunting. Like I said, you can, if you're really good on a duck call, if there's 2 of you that is really good on a duck call, you can take a slow day and make that day pretty good.
Yeah.
You can take a day that is pretty good and make that day amazing. So an amazing day usually doesn't need any help. Amazing days is pretty hard to mess up on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Like when you go to Canada, the days are all amazing for the most part, and the call's not that big of a factor up there.
No.
But once the ducks have pressure and once everything gets hard, you can start making your hunts better with good calling. So,
Agreed.
yeah, so that's really, and you're just more involved in the hunt when you're calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, by a lot. So,
That always makes it fun.
yeah. So, if you need help with calling, you can go to my YouTube page, same place this podcast is at, and I've got videos on there from the most basic sounds to some advanced stuff.
That's what I learned.
If you
A lot of people have.
Yeah, a lot of people have on that. If you want more than that, you can actually go, not ducklandercalls.com. You can go there, but if you look, there's a link on there for a page or a website called the ducklandertribe.com, and I have got an absolute pile of calling tutorials on that website. So you should be able to go from not being able to call to calling well just by watching those videos. They're pretty thorough. So
Yeah.
So practice.
Practice and practice a lot.
Yep. That's how you get better.
Practice. If somebody's starting to get annoyed with you blowing a call, then you are just starting to get to the right point of where
That
you are practicing enough.
Is correct. Your throat should hurt.
Yep.
Your lips should be worn out. Yes. It's kind of a miserable thing to go through.
Yes, it's terrible.
Yep. It'll be frustrating. You'll get mad, and then all of a sudden it'll click, and you'll go, I don't know how I couldn't do this yesterday.
Yeah.
Because you can just do it now. That's just the way calling works.
It'll very much that. Yeah.
Yep.
It just clicks.
Yep. So, take us out, Kyle.
So some of the key takeaways: calling too much is a bad thing. A little bit of chatter with an okay quack is good. Call in the corners. Learn how to read the birds while you're calling, and make sure you're calling on the corners, the four, not the right here. Yeah, practice more.
Yep.
So, the open house calling contest. What day is that?
March 31st.
March 31st
So
here at the Duck Cleaner Call Shop.
Yep. So we will have calls, shirts, hats, hoodies, all that good stuff in the shop.
Yep.
And then we have the Grand Slam calling contest. So I will post more of that. I've been gathering all the goodies for that over the last couple weeks and doing some graphics. You've seen a little bit of that go up. But mostly we've been rounding up people to help support the contest and the show.
Yep. And then what's our next episode? Don't know yet? All right.
Don't know yet.
We're going to have another episode. We just don't know what we're going to talk about yet.
Yeah, I got it.
So,
I didn't, yeah.
it is what it is. It's been kind of a weird week, like I said, with me getting over being sick and fighting through a cough. So, and then a call to action. So, make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing, leave feedback. We are, leave comments, give us ideas. We're open to anything and everything, but keep it hunting related.
I think I had a guy shoot me a question. I think he wanted to know about layout boats. I think.
Well, we're going to cover that on the next episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he had layout boat questions. I'll have to go back to, I think it was a YouTube comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that'll be a key one to look
Yep.
at next week.
Yep.
So with that, thanks for listening. Appreciate the time. Again, like, subscribe, share, send feedback. Good. Leave the negative out of it. We don't want to hear that.
No.
But anyway, that's all we got. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you all next time.
see you later.
The Grit and Green Podcast by Ducklander Fall Hunting.